Yo, crypto nation and mining family, what's going on out there, guys? What up, what up, what up, all you happy hashers? So, like I said, we're going to be doing some change ups around here on this channel, kind of going back to some of the roots that I like to do, which were, getting really in depth on particular subjects. And it's really kind of hard to do that, particularly being live every single time. So, that is one thing that I like that I was kind of documenting. Oh, okay, there was this issue, there was this issue, and it helped me out in the past, being able to reference back, going, I talked about this, and I have this card, or I have this motherboard, and I specifically spoke about this, and I was able to reference the direct video for this. And that's like what I like to kind of bring back into this channel, be able to kind of focus in on certain topics, like kind of today's topic, which will be the 5090s, guys. So they are in the light, but not in a positive way. So let's go ahead and just dive right down into it, guys. Oh, we have melty connectors again, guys. Once again, we have epic meltage on the connectors. This we can thank for DeBauer, from the owner of Thermal Grizzly, or one of the owners of Thermal Grizzly, and he had one of the members that was on Reddit that said that his 5090 got torched. Happened to be not far from where DeBauer is in Germany, so he was able to get the card and the cable to be able to make content off of. So he's got some amazing shots like this. This is the connector. So what you're looking at here, this one's interesting. This one. Wow. So this is the power supply side of the cable. And you can see the pin is almost melted clean out of that harness. That is some serious heat, right? And you're like, okay, is it because of this cable? The guy used an aftermarket cable, a 12 volt high power fail connector, are all the same spec. This is actually, they try to say, some people say that this is a cheap Chinese junk. DeBauer had it in his hand. He's able to kind of measure stuff out, and he's like, from what he can see, that this looks like a high quality connector, and it is of the 12 volt standard. So according to the connector's the way the connector looks, it looks like it's a decent power cable. I don't think any manufacturer out there is going to want to supply some bunk goods that are gonna just melt away, and like, this is the cable behind it. So it got so warm on the wire itself that it melted the casing on there. We'll get back to that. We will get back to that. I will make this a lot more clear of where my mindset is, and what I think a few other people might be kind of leaning down. This might be the issue, especially on the Founders Editions. Why? Here's the Founders Edition. That's the cable that melted on the power supply. That's what it did to the GPU side. Granted, I get it. It's an aftermarket cable. Could it be the problem? We've been having problems since the 4090 series. So there's something going on. Again, we'll get back to that. Keep this stuff in mind as we go over it and we're looking over the stuff. Remember the stuff, right? And we will circle back to this. This is the power supply side, guys. You're like, epic, right? That is some epic meltage. I guess the guy had to pry the cable out of the power supply side because it melted that hard. And like, and again, I will make that, like, if you guys don't understand how power supply side of things, so I'm not blaming the power supply side of things for this. This is not a power supply issue. This is an Nvidia problem. We will get back to this. So here is one thing, if you were ever to try to pick on one thing for the aftermarket people, right? So most of the time it'll be copper or a nickel plating, right? Copper won't be very durable. You won't really have very many plug in and plug outs before you wear the connector out all the way. Nickel plating kind of helps that out a bunch, kind of gives you a little bit of longevity on there. This aftermarket one, they went all out. This is actually gold plated. A real thin amount of gold on there makes for awesome connections. I know this from the stereo world. Everything I did with stereo equipment, it had to be gold leads on everything. You had to get rid of the signal noise out of everything. So, you know, it's like if I saw something like this, my inner, you know, audio technician side of me kicks in and goes, this is perfect, right? Absolutely perfect. But then gold or tin versus tin, gold and tin. So basically using gold with tin, because you got such a dissimilar metal, they actually do not play nice with each other for connections. Same thing with gold or nickel plating, it looks like too. So could this be the issue, right? Could it been a pin that was not playing nice with the nickel plating connector that was supplied with Nvidia? Small possibility. I won't rule that out. It could be part of the issue. Not the whole issue, though. We'll circle back to that, too. You know, like, I can give them plausible deniability for this. But when I get to towards the end of this, guys, it'll make more sense of why I keep on kind of stopping and emphasizing like this. Here's the photos of DeBauer's power supply for his Founders Edition. Now, he's using the one from the power supply manufacturer, their supplied cable. Should be just fine. Like that, you would think that a power supply manufacturer, the last thing they want to do is make a crappy quality cable. This is after like about a minute, and we're about 30 degrees Celsius. After about 1 minute worth of runtime on this, while he was running Furmark. So he's just running a synthetic bench test on the GPU. And you can see the cables already getting warm. So, okay, 30C, you're like, yeah, whatever. Here we got the 2 wires going to his Founders Edition that are lighting up, that are getting hot. That should not be normal. This is after about 1 minute worth of runtime. This is about 4 minutes. Or no. This was about 2 minutes into the runtime. We're at almost 90 degrees Celsius off the power supply side. This is after about 2 minutes, and we're now he was now measuring hot spot on this at right around 50 degrees Celsius on 2 wires. I mean, it's not out of spec at 50 degrees Celsius by any means, no way, right? But let me go back to this. So he got it after about 4 minutes. It got up to 150 degrees Celsius on it. 150 degrees. After about 4 minutes, these wires were measuring out at 80 degrees Celsius Now we're starting to talk about, we're looking at toaster territory. Why only on 2 wires are we flowing all the amperage? So DeBauer went through and measured his Founders Edition and found that the one, like, you have 6 power wires and 6 ground wires, right? So, and then you got 4 sense wires. That's how it works. One wire was flowing 23 amps through it. That's grossly out of spec for that wiring. We have 2 amps out of one, which is basically doing nothing. 5 amps out of another, which is, okay, it's doing a little something, something. We had one that had 11 amps, 8 amps, and 3 amps, while 2 of these wires were getting hot. So that one that was running 11 watts is probably the sister to the one that was running 23 watts. And I will explain how this actually works, guys. I mean, so here is a Founders Edition. What I want you guys to focus in on is this little spot right there. That's a singular shunt resistor, which means, like, you know, this is a singular shunt resistor here. Just a singular shunt resistor right here. I don't know if I like a can I, will it let me shift? Nope, it won't let me really do it. But there's like a singular shunt resistor here. It's basically treating all 6 wires as one power rail. Yeah, let that sink in. It's treating all 6 wires as one power rail. Here we can get this one. I can thank actual hardcore overclocking on YouTube for this awesome stuff, like graphics right here. So up at the top here, we got the 3x8 pin and the 6-pin PCIe. The 6-pin PCIe, the original standard had 2 12-volt power rails, but the later editions had 3 12-volt power rails. So in the original format, it was like a 75-watt 6-pin PCIe. If you go with the like the later generation for the 6-pin, that 75 watt basically made it an underwatted 6-pin. So you were able to flow more wattage through that 6-pin because you had 3 power rails on there versus the old standard, which kind of put them into the same territory as that 3x8 pin, which gave you 3 power cables for each power phase. And on the power supply side, they're what they call common rail. So all the wires that are feeding into the PCIe, they're all the same 12 volt. There's no different. They're in phase with each other, and it just rocks and rolls with power flowing out to whatever wire that needs to go out, right? So going into the older standard, like the 8 pin, the original 8 pins, you basically had 3 shunts on there. So it was looking for 3 different power rails, and each power rail would allow you to run 150 watts. So they're in phase 150 watts per 8-pin connector. So each phase had 3 wires. So you could technically cut a wire and the thing would still keep rocking and rolling. You can cut 2 wires, thing would keep cutting and rolling, rocking and rolling. Not ideal, but it would still keep rolling. If you cut all 3 of the wires, you shut down one of the phases and the card would not power up. Really good safety feature. Helped the card actually keep the wiring in phase with each other, and led to less failure rates. So if you ever had a bad cable, they just didn't work. And I'll tell you what, guys, through mining over the years, I have found bad cables. You plug them in and nothing happens. You swap a cable out and the thing powered up. That was because there was an issue in the power cable itself. And because of the separate power, because of it having different shunts inside the card, it has its own built-in safety in there. Now, that's why, anything that ran the 8-pin did not have these fire issues. You go into the 20 series, they weren't using these high voltage power rails, but we were having an issue on the 2080 Ti's, calling for too much power through the 8-pin. And those were some of the early day ones, and they were able to pull back power on those, and people stopped having issues. So that's where they were going, we need to have the 12 volt high power connector on here. Great concept. So the first format on there going into the 30 series where they were really utilizing this, thankfully my 3080 Ti does not have it, but if you have it on a Founders, you hit the 3090, the 3080 Ti, and the 3080, all in the Founders editions, the 3090 Ti on the 12 volt power rail 2 on all of them. Now the 3090 Ti's did not have this issue because as they would ramp up, they were below 80%, so they had more headroom on that cable. That, same thing with the 3080s. You had so much more headroom. You were talking about a cable, sure, rated for 450 watts, but if you had a quality cable, you're running 16 gauge, you could easily run the 600 watt through there. It was just a matter of making sure you had the plug securely plugged in and you were good to go. What was the difference between the 12x2 or the 12x6 and the original 12 volt high power connector? They made the sense wires be a little bit, the connectors be a little shorter so that you had to make sure you plugged it in all the way for it to register. And they made the power and ground rails, the pins, be a little bit longer to try to help you with the better securing on the connector. Now, with the original, the first set of the 12 volt high power rail, they had 3 shunts in there. So it had 2 wires feeding each one for 450 watt total, right? So if you cut 1 wire, you would still have the phase on. You cut 2 of them and the card wouldn't power up. Power supply side, it doesn't care. It's sending 12 volts out no matter how it happens. So if it decides that it's going to nab a little bit too much power and damage the connector side of things, these were running just low enough wattage that you didn't have so much of an issue. You might have a bubbly connector, maybe. A lot of people that I remember were just having issues just getting the 3090 Founders to turn on. And playing with the cables, you were able to get them to turn back on, and it wasn't really a damaging event. Going into the 4090s and the 5090s, because the 3080s were not running so much power, this is not an issue. So they went to the PSU being a common rail. All 6 wires come blasting over to the Founders Edition card, and it goes to a common rail to 2 shunts going to a common single rail power. So the card has no clue if I cut 5 of these 6 wires out and I decide to flow the 600 watts through 1 wire because the connector's not plugged in all the way. There is no way humanly possible to know if the card cannot detect if that connector is plugged in all the way. So if I've got a broken wire or a misaligned pin on 2 of them, now I'm flowing more power through all the rest of them. And because it's a common rail, there's no power balancing on this stuff. It's just going to yank power from wherever is the easiest way, because electricity is going to take the path of least resistance. And then the 5090 Founders Edition, Nvidia, why? You decided to go, well, I like this connector, but I'm gonna go mess it up as much as humanly possible. They take all 6 wires and put it through one shunt, singular shunt. Remember that photo I was saying? We'll circle back to this. Where did I put that? And here we go. Remember I said we're gonna circle back to this? A singular shunt mod. Shunt right here. One resistor coming into the card. All the power comes in right here. Nvidia has no way to detect if the connector is plugged in or not properly, outside of did the sense wires touch. If there's any problem with the connector itself, it will just do this. If one of them is just not connected in properly. And I'm not saying that this guy connected that connector in improperly. It was just maybe that one pin didn't like being, the connector was sat in as best as it possibly could. And there was an issue with the cable itself. I'm cool with that, with just going, you know what, there was a problem with the cable damaged this. But I'm not going to sit there and blame somebody who's built a few computers over his lifetime that he did not plug in the connector, especially somebody that knows that there was an issue with these connectors. You, like me, like you guys, we're going to double, triple check, make sure these high volt 12 volt connectors are properly seated. So we're not going to make that, oh, did you plug it in all the way mistake? No, that's going to be off the table for somebody who understands what's going on. So now we have a cable that, let's say that it didn't grab that pin properly, and it was arcing out on that pin just a little bit because he used that cable on a couple of GPUs. So because it's all on one power rail, all the power coming in through one central spot, as long as it saw the right appropriate amount of power and the sense pins were powered in, it didn't care that pin was not making contact right. Did not care. And you make an improper connection on something and you will hot leg it. Because as it tries to jump, electricity will try to jump the air. It has to flow more amperage. In order to flow more amperage, yep, you're going to start causing more heat, guys. So, ASUS is trying their best to try to figure out a way to make it better. So they're using the 5090 setup from Nvidia that has the 2 shunts. But again, it doesn't know what's going on the other side of this. It treats it as one power rail coming in. It's the stupidest thing ever. Nvidia has absolutely destroyed this card power capabilities on this. You got to be real careful with this stuff, guys. So ASUS is made a shunt for each one of these before the Nvidia side of the PCB. And it's tied in with their sense, so that if it breaks connection on one of these wires, it detects it in the sense and will not let the card will chime at you that it's missing power. And you will have to turn it off and play with the wire and turn it back on to reset it. This is a far better solution on a bad situation because they have no way of knowing what failed. ASUS has got the best situation on this covered for the 4090s and the 5090s. It looks like Nvidia themselves with their Founders Edition only. The 5090 has no way of knowing if your connector is plugged in properly or not. You have to plug it in and pray. Does this mean that now you have to use their supplied cable? I probably would just on the side of safety. but that's not a foolproof. You're going to have no problems if you utilize their cables. Now, these cards are not, that like there's enough of them out in the wild, but there's not a lot of them that got sold worldwide. So the stories of them failing now are going to start slowly, I think, coming out here because of the fact that there is no way to power balance on the Founders Edition. I don't think you're going to have an issue on the Asus side. Hopefully, it just kind of tells you, hey, I'm not plugged in right and doesn't boot right, which is a great safety feature. I like them like back in the day. You had like 3 8-pins, and if you didn't plug one in, it just wouldn't turn. You wouldn't get any video confirmation, and you would see a red light on there for whichever one wasn't plugged in. You're like, oh, I forgot to plug one in. Cool. Great little safety features, but that's where the shunts come in, with the shunt resistors, because if you unpower one of them and they're separate rails, the card doesn't turn on. Where through these high volt power rails, they're treated as almost one. They're treated as one from the power supply side, and as they enter into the card, it's treated as one. So I see this standard, the way that they're implementing it right now, being a really bad implementation, and that it's going to cause issues more and more down the road for the consumer. So I don't say don't get the 5090s, but do not get the Founders Editions, especially if you're going to be mining on them. I would sit there and with the way that they've got the power rail on here, I wouldn't suggest anybody to get this thing and have it in their computer at all. I think it's a really bad design. Anybody that has a Founders Edition, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm going to tell you what I would do. If I had a Founders Edition and I just found this information out on it, I'd be trying to sell my Founders Edition and trying to get, if I had to have a 5090, I would try to get the Asus, get the Asterial, and try to, see if you can even get your hands on it. Otherwise, a 5080, you're going to have a little more headroom on this 12-volt high power connector, and you're going to have less issues. So kind of take that with a grain of salt. So if you guys got any comments or questions on here, again, my suggestion is not to be buying the Founders Edition. I probably, I'm not even happy with how they do the 4090 and the 5090 with their power rail going into one. I can't recommend even those, just because of how they do their power rail. But if you have to have a 5090, go with the Asus one. It looks like they're trying to have some kind of semblance of detecting a pin not making contact, and that's going to be your best bet for fail-safe. I don't want you guys having any damage to PC equipment, nor do I want any of you guys to be flowing 23 amps and having a small little fire in your house while you're mining at night. So be careful out there, guys. Stay frosty. You got any comments or questions, drop them in down below. I always respond to everything. And with that being said, smash that Lizzie like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good stuff. Peace out. Stay savage. And may your watts be low and your hash be high. I'll see you on the next one.